committee meeting to order. Board of Trustees United IC. It is Tuesday, August 10th, 2021. We're at SAC Room Number 2, Finance Building. Time is 7:05 p.m. and we have present Mr. Ricardo Rodriguez and Mr. Molina, myself, Mr. Vélez. Do we have any public comments signed up for our?
Not at this time, sir.
No public comments. All right, so we'll go to action items to be reviewed at the regular board meeting to be held August 18, 2021. Recommendation made by Business Committee. Item A, approval of monthly disbursements. Mr. Flores.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Vélez, Mr. Molina, Mr. Rodriguez. The Division of Finance presented you with the monthly disbursements for the month of July. You all have had a time to review it. I don't know if you have any questions at this time.
No, no questions.
Thank you.
No questions. I'll make a comment, Mr. Flores, real quick. I know that you're changing the reporting of the financial information.
And the information item, yes, sir.
Right,
When we
so I
get there,
know-
I'll explain it to you all.
You explain it right now?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
no problem.
I can do it now if you'd like, but it's on the agenda towards the end of the agenda.
Towards the end?
It's under informational item of the superintendent's
Yeah,
report.
we'll take it when it comes in then.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, so item B, approval of budget amendments.
Yes, sir. The Division of Finance is bringing two budget amendments. Neither one of them has an effect on fund balance. BA 2107 is mainly a budget entry that we need to do. Everybody's familiar with the school year we just have had. Under normal school year circumstances, schools would request student travel, and they would request this out of function 36. If you see the line item there, it starts off with 1991, and then it goes to 34. The one underneath it is 1991-36. That's co-curricular, extracurricular activities. And the schools would have done field trips, usually close to about $2 million throughout the year. So when we create the budget, we put the money in function 34 as a minus, and in function 36 as a plus. And as the schools go to these field trips, the transportation department will bill them. We get the bill and we start charging the function, the 36 as an expenditure and adding it to function 34. Since we did not have any student field trips, or we had minimal student field trips, that function is now short, excuse me, what normally would have been the $2 million entry. So I'm just asking to lower the budget in function 36 by $1.5 million and increasing it in function 34 by $1.5 million. Again, it's just a budget entry. There was no activity. There were no student field trips at the time, this past year. They were minimum.
Right, okay, let me ask you on the, I'll bring it up, on the budget.
Yes, sir.
Information that's the negative 2.18, the figure that we have there, right?
Yes, sir. It's about $2 million, yes, sir.
$2 million
And that needs to be funded as we go throughout the year and field trips start happening throughout the school district. We need to fund that with the billing that comes from the transportation, the 3 units in transportation.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's the only one that showed a negative amount like that.
That's why we wanted to wait till the end of the year, see if it could carry itself, and it was starting to catch up to us. So
Okay.
before we close the year, we want to cover that negative.
No problem.
The second budget amendment, BA 2108, is kind of the same thing. Food service usually is a general fund. If you'll see, it's 101. At the beginning of the year, they were going to operate as business as usual. As we got towards the middle, end of September, early October, they found out that they could actually extend the summer feeding program and earn more funds for the district for the food service child nutrition program. So they kind of left Fund 101 early in the year and switched over to a special revenue fund. By doing so, though, we bring a budget to you, and you can see in that budget book, you can see they're around $28 million in revenues and expenditures. Well, they only spent about $2 or $3 million. So when we do our financial statements, Texas Education Agency will look at the disparity in the budget amount. We'll say, hey, you posted $28 million in revenue, you only brought in $2 million. You know, what happened with the 26? And we would have to report, do a summative on what happened there. And the same thing with the expenditures. They would see $28 million budgeted and only $2 million spent. So we're trying to be proactive, and we're just a book entry on the budget side alone. And we're going to reduce their budget in the 101 because they carried on their activities for the year in Fund 242, which is a special revenue fund that you do not have to adopt the budget for.
Okay.
So we just want to make this clear because the Texas Education Agency also does financial integrity rating systems that we'll be presenting to you all in a couple of months. And one of their indicators is to see how well budget met actual. Well, they're going to see this huge disparity, so we need to bring the budget down in the revenue and the expenditures. It's just a wash, no effect on fund balance.
Understand. Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Item C, submission of appraisal roll to the governing body.
Yes, sir. This is an annual item that we need to bring to the board. We're nothing more than just officially certifying the 2021 values that are also reflected in the budget book that you were referring to. And it just shows that our overall appraised value is $21 billion, a little over $21 billion. The net appraised value comes down with some deductions, some discounts that are allowed to 21.1 billion. But our taxable value, after you take away all the state exemptions, drops down to $17,598,372,969. And we have 126,637 accounts. The next page, you just see a 20-year history over our property values at the taxable value. It's almost the far right column under taxable value. You can see that United ISD over the past 20 years has grown significantly in property values. The following page is also just a summative letting you know that the Webb County Appraisal District in the first column certified already $17.6 billion. They still have ARB protests that are going on of about $210 million. So the total values, if everything gets approved and stuff, will be at about $17.8 million in total values that will become taxable values that we can add to our levy. But we're early on, so we just have to bring you the numbers that are certified already, which is $17.598 billion, and still under review at $210 million.
Compared to last year, Mr. Flores, would that be a similar amount?
We grew a little bit. You can see the changes right there. You see the net improvement of appraised values. We grew $312 million in values,
Okay.
which relates to $296 million in taxable values. So it's a slight growth.
Right, okay. All right. Okay, letter D, approval submission of the certified excess debt service collected.
Yes, sir, Mr. Valley. This is new per section 2604 of the Texas Property Tax Code. We have to bring you a new calculation that we're going to be doing every year on the debt service side. If you remember, we have general fund operating funds, and that has its separate tax rate. And then we have to pay all of our debt, our bonded debt, for our construction programs mainly, with a different tax rate. And now they want us to share with you all how much did we budget, and then how much did we actually collect. And what we collect over what we budget is called excess collections. So you'll see, if you go to the next slide, or next, scroll up a little bit, you'll see that Ms. Madrigal, our tax assessor collector, calculated these calculations. And you'll see right there in the middle of that paragraph, you'll see that we actually collected more than we budgeted. We collected $444,000 more than what we actually budgeted. And we'll see what TA wants to do with this information. For now, it's just an informational line item that we have to start bringing to you all for your knowledge and your approval.
I would assume that every year it's more, there's always a figure there, there's always a
If you remember
surplus.
last month, we estimated our collection rate to be 100% because we're usually on the debt service side, if not at 100, 99.8 or 99.9, but we're usually at 100%, if not 101.
With this, so this is a new requirement from the state
This is a
just
new
to
requirement.
report?
There's a new requirement. I know it's going to lead into, if you remember my informational line item last month when I didn't have my water with me and I was running out of voice, we have to bring to you our property value discussion once a year, and we did it last month. And there's a change in property value, and when that change in property value is greater than 2.5%, it's going to affect the maximum amount of tax rate that we can do.
Right, it caps this.
That's on the general fund side.
Okay.
So on the debt service side now, they're going to say, okay, well, you had excess collections of $444,000. You need to start adding that into any future bond payments, so that they're going to it'll lead to limiting how much we can grow in the debt service tax rate.
You see it
Because
coming now then.
they're going to start watching how much we actually collect over what we levy. So it's probably going to start putting a limit on how fast our debt service tax rate can grow.
Or limit us on collecting so much more.
Yeah.
They'll do something, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
They will.
All right. Letter E, approval for Board of Property and Casualty Insurance renewal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Flores.
Hello, good evening, board members, Mr. Gonzalez, and members of the audience. My name is Ofelia Dominguez. I am the Director for Risk Management. And tonight, this evening, I bring before you the approval for the award of the Property and Casualty Insurance Renewal, which plan year starts September the 1st. The staff has completed review of the district property and casualty insurance and recommends acceptance of the renewal proposal submitted by the carrier Property Casualty Alliance of Texas, PCAT, and AmRisc Carlisle Insurance. The rationale behind it is PCAT is an organization created pursuant to the Interlocal Corporation Act, Chapter 791, Title 7 of the Texas Government Code. Membership is made up totally of Texas school districts, and participation is by interlocal agreement. Property, wind, and hail coverage will be provided by AmRisc, which is a casualty coverage to be provided by PCAT, coverage and deductibles as listed on the attached schedule. For the budget, for the renewal premium, the total annual renewal premium will be $3,517,384. The package policy to include AmRisc property written through a pool of insurance companies, casualty through PCAT, which includes the automobile liability and physical damage, the educator's legal liability, the flood and non-flood areas, equipment breakdown, the cyber suite, general liability, and law enforcement liability. The difference in total annual premiums compared to last year, it's a total of $857,009, and mainly the difference is because of the coverage that we had last year to this year. It's a total additional coverage of $36,535,785, and that mostly because we added the new campus, the Roberto Santos Elementary, that was added on this year to the property. And then we also increased the number of autos that we had insured, and we also decreased the deductible amount on the educator's legal liability. One change that we are having is on the wind and hail deductibles, it's going to be at $500,000, and for all other perils, it'll be at $250,000.
Okay. So we just added more property to be insured, more
Yes, sir.
automobiles,
Yes.
more items.
Yes, it did. The campus for Roberto Santos was added on brand new last year, and then the company actually went out and did an inspection on the properties to make sure that they are insured at replacement cost. So we noticed that what we had covered, which is the total amount of coverage that we have, it's at $1.2 billion almost with all the campuses, the schools, buildings, and contents actually.
Okay.
So that is the reason why we see an increase in that, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Any questions, sir?
No question.
Thank you.
Letter F, adopt official budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year.
Trevelyan's members of the board, for Ms. Benavides has a proposal. Just to, once again, restate, this is a very conservative budget. Will provide human resource and other resources that our campus and departments need for a successful school year this year. And yes, we're going to be looking at what's already been approved from the ESSER funds, which is $3,500 for employments. There'll be 2 payments. But at this time, there is no proposed raise. Although I think the good news for all our taxpayers is the budget also includes a tax rate reduction to save our local taxpayers, which is really, really good. The budget is based on the projection of enrolled students at this time. As a staff, we're going to continue to monitor that, as mentioned earlier. I will come back to you in October. And we're going to continue to work with all our departments. I know the Controller's Office, San Flores, will be working, looking at numbers, working closely with our campus, all departments. We'll review our requisitions, our purchase orders, including field trips, travel equipment. If there's a possibility of a one-time payment later on, then we'll look at that, we'll visit that. Ms. Benavides?
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Vélez, Mr. Molina, and Mr. Rodriguez. I'm going to just do a real quick PowerPoint presentation to give you the background of our budget right now. The next slide shows our sorry. Oh, sorry, right here. The next slide shows the TEA requirements, and we're ready to bring the budget to you to adopt before August 31st. So we'll be showing you 3 funds to adopt: the general operating, debt service, and food service. And we'll show you the level that it needs to be adopted at, which is at a fund and function level. And then we will have a item to adopt a tax rate. The first slide there is on local revenues. Like Mr. Gonzalez mentioned, we are proposing to reduce our tax rate. It's a reduction on the M&O side, or maintenance and operation, of a little more than 2 pennies. And actually, this is the maximum rate that we can adopt. What the state does is they set a maximum compression rate, and we can't go higher than that amount. And so in doing our calculations with our value growth, with our values that we got certified, we actually have to bring the M&O tax rate down. So this tax rate will create over $167,094,589 in tax revenue for the maintenance and operation side of our budget. On the state revenue, like Mr. Gonzalez mentioned, our budget is based on our projected enrollment of 41,318. We're using an attendance rate of 94%, and this will generate hopefully $205,572,714. Just a little update, and I know Mr. Garza's here. This morning, we had about 1,064 students that hadn't registered yet. So just to keep in mind that about 100 students is about $600,000. So, and I know, but Mr. Garza and his staff are keeping an eye on that student registration. That is key. Again, that's enrollment, but at the same time, we have to be aware of attendance. That's why I keep on harping on those 20 days that a student can be out on remote conferencing, that now we can count that attendance. I thought that was very key for TA to allow us to do those things. And so this is just, I guess this is our part that we're going to be looking at carefully, especially the first 6 weeks, like Mr. Garza mentioned, that we do peak in the end of October. So we will hopefully start having some good numbers through the first 6 weeks, and we'll be working closely with his office to make sure that we're counting every student, and we'll be checking their attendance as well. And we'll work with Ms. Amalesa's area to make sure that those students that we are sending home for remote conferencing, that their attendance is being counted as well. And hopefully, if we need to do any waivers, that the state allows us to do waivers.
On the, let me ask you a quick question during that slide. On that projected state revenue of $205 million at 94%,
Yes.
it's a real conservative number that you're putting there, right? At 94%?
Yes, that's conservative. That's a lot of our trend. Your elementary students are always real good about coming to school. They're like at 96, 97%.
But that 94% represents the whole district
The
across the
whole
board?
district, right?
The average of the whole district.
Yes.
For us, do we usually average around 97%? Is that more or less accurate, or?
It's more like depending on the type of student, right?
Of course.
So, you know, you have 40,000 students, you try to do an average right in the middle.
Right.
Your high schools tend to have a lower attendance rate. That's why we kind of push that Kia, the car, the perfect attendance. And then at the elementary end, well, I guess the parents are bringing their kids, so they really always do have a better attendance rate. So we're hoping that we can hold on to that overall 94% attendance rate.
Right.
But again, like, we're always monitoring it with Mr. Garza and his staff, just to see if they see something strange happening.
Right. Where are we at up until today, Mr. Garza, if you can answer that question on enrollment? I know you've been up to giving us updates on it.
Yes, sir. In anticipation of the question, we were able to get our information today. As you recall, the last presentation we made at the beginning of the month of July, we were short 6,700 students. As of this morning, as it was presented here with Ms. Benavides, we're down to 1,064. If every one of those individuals, the 1,064 plus the 1,378 that we have that have started the process of registering, plus the 1,351 that have already submitted or pending approval, and the 38,075 that we have that are already approved, we would sit at around 41,868, which would actually put us above our projected enrollment if all those individuals come in.
Okay.
This is on paper, sir, and I really want to emphasize that. Like, this is what we have registered. These are the individuals. At the end of the day, the first day of school, and just to caution everybody, we always have a 2,000 to 3,000 student gap because we're still trying to find them. We're still trying to make sure that they're counted. We're still trying to make sure that they arrive to school and so forth.
I'm not even going to ask you the first
Yeah,
week
it's
or so,
crazy.
I think.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So every day that happens after the first day, it cuts by 50%, and then 50% again, and then by the end of the week, we're pretty much stabilized.
Right.
We still grow, and that's why we count in October what our peak enrollment is, because even through the month of September, up into October, we're still growing incrementally.
Correct.
Slowing down, but growing incrementally. So we feel confident that we'll be within the 1,000 student deficit that we had predicted, because we're really at 1,000 now.
Right, that's
But-
exactly where you're at. Are you,
Yes, sir.
is there still efforts to try to locate
Yes,
those
sir.
1,064?
Yes, sir. Even though our trend has slowed down, because
Correct.
as you grow your number, the smaller the percentage of increase. But our trend right now is about 1.8% on a daily trend. If we stay at that pace, we will hit our projected enrollment. We'd really have to take a nosedive, going down to almost 50% of that trend in order for us to stay at the 1,000 minus student enrollment.
Of those 1,064, or do we have, or we count any on that figure of parents that have already notified that they will not send the students? to-
We've already taken those students out. So
Okay.
they're called, what they're called withdrawals.
Correct.
So those are official withdrawals. That is not counted in this
On
number.
those 1,064?
But in this number, what is counted is individuals that haven't answered the calls, haven't responded to our messaging or any type of
No
communication.
contact whatsoever?
No,
or-
sir.
okay.
But we are, now that we have all the attendance officers that have arrived on campus, they are now being tasked to go and knock on the doors and try to find them. So as we're locating individuals or not locating individuals, the other side of it, then we're withdrawing them officially once we get that notification. So currently, just for your information, the last number that we had, were about 600 withdrawals, which is right in line with last year. Last year at the start of school, we had 1,000 withdrawals over the summer. So we're right in line with that number. So we anticipate the same number of withdrawals this year.
Understand. Okay.
Thank you.
Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. So the next slide shows our expenditures. Again, this is going to be a balanced budget that we propose to you tonight and next Wednesday. The total budgeted expenditures is $406,598,697. Of that, the payroll cost is over $355 million. We have included in here new positions for the aquatic center and for the new elementary school. We do our campus positions based on staffing guidelines, so it's always based on number of students. So, you know, there could have been a school that lost a counselor, and maybe we moved that counselor to a school that was growing, or maybe this new school. So that's how we balance the staffing. Again, no raises included, but just like Mr. Gonzalez said, the one-time payment of up to $3,500 will be funded from the federal grant ESSER 2. The first payment is in October, and the second payment is in January. The proposed non-payroll cost is a little more than $51 million. We have put in here the new aquatic center operations that should take care of the supplies they need, just everything that you need to. I'm hoping y'all saw the picture of the aquatic center. It's beautiful.
Right.
So
The
it's going to
picture and
take
the
some money
videos,
to
yeah.
keep it up, but we went ahead and budgeted for that. Our property and casualty that was presented to you, yes, it was a bump in our insurance. We're just hoping that we don't have a windstorm like we did this past May. That would help, or the winter storm that we had in February. That did also affect, we had quite a bit of damage. But I think our partnership with PCAT, which is other school districts also, they also suffered with the winter storm. So I think the whole insurance environment saw an impact on just the different claims that came out of the two storms. The debt service fund, that's the other fund that y'all need to adopt as part of the budget. We're proposing a debt service revenue of $43,593,000. It equals the payment that we owe based on the bond schedule that we have from our financial advisors. This debt service, we are proposing a net increase of 1 penny for our debt service tax rate to 24 cents. And like we said last time, that this brings our total tax rate since we sold the bonds in 2013, or the bond election in 2013, it's increased by 8.7 cents, and back there, we told our taxpayers that we may have to increase by almost 13 cents. So we're still below that amount. And then the food service fund, again, we're proposing a balanced budget there as well, a revenue of 33.9 million and expenses to match the revenue. Just to let the board know, there's not going to be the grab-and-go meals, the ones that would be delivered outside of the campus. Everything will be fed inside the campus. There'll be breakfast in the classroom in your earlier grades, like elementary and middle. And I think lunch will be served in the cafeterias with, students sanitizing, cleaning their hands, and hopefully staying, apart so many feet. But just to let you know, just in case parents ask, we're not going to be doing the drive-by where they pick up the meals anymore. Again, unless we're notified again if something changes, and the Texas Department of Ag, we have to close down anything, that they may allow us to do those grab-and-go meals again. But as of right now, they have told us that's not an option right now.
Okay.
And then the last slide, just the board actions. We'll have the public hearing on August 18th. The notice did come out in the paper on August 8th. The items will be the proposed budget, and I was going to ask Sonia if that item would be a separate agenda, or at least the tax rate.
I would recommend.
Not under consent, right?
Correct, individual item.
And then you'll see there that our prior tax rate was $1.198840, and our proposed tax rate does go down a little more than a penny to $1.18780. So after this happens, our new budget is in effect for September 1st. And then the next slide just kind of shows, and I know it's very little print, but this is the level of budget that you all adopt, which is a fund, and then what you see is a function for general fund, debt service, and child nutrition.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any questions regarding the budget.
I have no other questions. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Item G, resolution to adopt 2021 tax rate.
So this is a separate item for adopting the tax rate. It's a resolution, and it would be read that night, right, Sonia?
Right,
If
I
we
would
have
recommend it
as-
being an individual item as well.
Yes, and it shows the two tax rates that I showed you, which would be the .94536 for local maintenance fund and .242240 for debt service, for a total of $1.1878 total tax rate, $1.1878. So the resolution that you see there would have to be read that night.
That's fine.
Yes,
Right,
I would
Tony?
recommend it.
Yes.
Again, read that night, individual
Yes.
item.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item H, approval of awarding bids, proposals, and qualifications.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Velis, Mr. Rodriguez, and Mr. Molina. The following recommendations are being made by administration. RFP 005-2021, online transcript services. The recommended vendor is Parchment for $48,650. RFP 013-2021, online student engagement platform. The recommended vendor is Nearpod. The contract amounts would be a 3-year contract for $786,882, with the option to renew for 2 additional years at $524,588. This is subject to ESSER funding, so if for whatever reason that doesn't get approved, then we wouldn't go with it, but we have to get it approved by the board first. RFP 015-2021, incentive promotional items and various apparel to all the vendors listed. RFP 022-2021, scanning and imaging services to archiving systems. RFP 023-2021, two-way radios to the vendors listed. RFP 024-2021, food produce vendors to the 4 vendors listed, and that bid is really done weekly, so this is really just a pool of vendors you're approving, and as we bid out the produce weekly, since those prices fluctuate, it would go out only to those 4 vendors, and only one of those 4 vendors would be awarded, or a multiple, depending on the outcome. RFP 026-2021, award jackets, and that's to SSR jackets and varsity jackets and patches. RFP 029-2021, bus vehicle service and repairs to the vendors listed for the services listed. So we have, AC, body repair and collision, et cetera. And I don't know if you could put the summary up for me, please. I'm sorry, I thought that's what y'all were looking at. RFP 031-2021, inspection and maintenance of fire extinguishers and ANSEL suppression systems to ANC Fire Equipment Company and Johnson Controls Fire Protection. RFP 032-2021, monitoring of fire security alarm systems and elevator emergency telephones to Superior Alarms and Johnson Control Fire Alarm Systems. RFP 033-2021, labor and material for electric supplies to the vendors listed. RFP 034-2021, hardwood floor repair and maintenance to Quality Hardwood Floors. RFP 037-2021, electrical supplies to Belco Supply and CED Laredo. RFP 039-2021, small engine repairs to Telus Equipment. RFP 045-2021, surveillance systems upgrade licenses to Audio Dynamics, Inc. And then we have 4 renewals for your consideration. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you, Courtney.
All right, so we have 2 items left, okay, so item I, approval of amendment number 1 to the design build contract with Line Deck Construction of Texas Incorporated for Ricardo Molina Middle School for deletion of project allowance, providing for the installation of a fire protection storage tank and pump station. Mr. Rangel?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Vélez, Mr. Molina, Mr. Rodriguez, Superintendent Gonzalez, and Ms. Sonia Garcia, and members of the audience. So today we bring to you for your consideration this credit in regards to the construction of Ricardo Molina Middle School project that it's actually right now approximately 65% complete and moving along really well. So during this phase, we did want to bring up the issue that when the project was awarded, we included an allowance for a possible installation, if required, of a water storage for fire protection. At this time, we've been notified after we inquired with the city fire department that this particular improvement is not really required at this location. At this time, I'd like to hand it over for a brief presentation to our project architect, Randy Hollis, with Munoz Architects, who is here to explain a little more on that.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Hollis.
Thank you, Enrique. Good evening, Superintendent Gonzalez, Mr. Molina, Mr. Vélez, and Mr. Rodriguez. Good to see you all this evening. Just want to give a little explanation of the reason for the tank. The tank is there. It's put in as allowance in case the water pressure is too low to provide adequate service to all the fire protection, fire sprinklers in the building. Typically, the design for all the sprinklers and such is not done until after the project is underway. That is why the approval has come. We've now gotten the approval from the city of Laredo that we do not need those tanks. You might wonder why, with the big water tower there above the school, why that's an issue, but the fact is that they don't approve this sort of thing until later in the project. So we're able to take advantage of this credit. The idea is that this amount is for a deduction of $139,150, which includes contractor's fees and includes markups for his bond costs. So you are getting credit for those with this. So the overall contract amount in this case gets reduced from $21,790,896 to $21,651,746. There should be some information in your packet that does have the approvals from the city of Laredo. So this is a good one to take.
Good news. I know we're following up with another item that we're adding costs, I think, but so this is some good news for now.
It's good news for now.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. All right, so quick question, let me ask, the 139, it would go back into that particular account for for that bond project, or where does it sit right now?
It's a reduction off of the total amount of
Total
the contract amount that goes to the contractor.
Okay.
So it's an absolute credit to the project.
Understand. Thank you. All right, so next item, J, approval amendment number 2 to the design build contract with Landeco Construction, Texas Incorporated for Ricardo Molinas Middle School to increase the contract guaranteed maximum price amount for landscaping improvement, including improvements to the football field playing surface. All right, so
Yes, good
from
evening.
savings to adding some costs.
Yes, sir. Well, we're recommending for your consideration,
Okay.
Mr. Vélez, Mr. Molina, Mr. Rodriguez, members of the audience, and Superintendent Gonzalez, Ms. Garcia. So this item, we've actually been waiting for quite a while before we could bring it up to the board, because we wanted to ensure there were some funds available to be able to make this enhancement.
We
to
just
the
got some
project.
funds, so
So.
found you some.
Correct. So we are recommending at this time, the administration is recommending that that you consider this possible upgrade. What it is, it's enhancing the quality of the football field surface, the playing surface, to a better type of tips. It's called a tip sport, better type or Bermuda grass. It does have a lot of benefits. That's why we're bringing it for your consideration. It does include a better quality, and it's been proven in the industry that it will perform much better under high temperatures, especially in South Texas. It's being used by a lot of school districts, golf courses, and anywhere where grass has to be maintained. It tolerates has a real high tolerance on performance against insects, disease, and weed growth, high temperature conditions. It will save substantial amount of monies on herbicides, pesticides, and water, because it requires a lot less water than typical grass. We did use this type of improved surface at Raúl Perales Middle School, and we have it included on the third middle school on Roberto Ramirez Middle School. It was not included on this project from the beginning because, as you may recall, we were very tight on the budget. We looked at different value engineering options. At that time, the administration recommended, okay, we're just going to go with the basic plain vanilla standards, and then in the future, if funds become available, we will bring it for your consideration. Mr. Hollis, I know we want to.
Commissioner,
Right
I
now,
had the plan, if I may, we want to interject that this is also approved also by our Bond Oversight Committee. It's a recommendation, correct?
Both items were recommended for approval by last week by the Bond Oversight Committee. But go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Enrique. Yeah, this is a proven sports surface. This grass was specifically bred for this purpose.
Okay. What was the initial type of material, what type of grass do we have?
So it was just standard coastal Bermuda hydromulch and standard irrigation. What you do get in this is an upgraded irrigation system with stainless steel heads.
Okay.
So you'll have that for long life. And it's a specialized contractor that puts this in to make sure it's done right. The soil is brought in from between the Petite Catula area.
Okay, so we have, then it's not just grass that so it's the soil, grass, upgraded, landscaping, irrigation systems?
The whole 9 yards. It's a
Whole 9
complete
yards.
system, so it's not just you're changing grass.
Only for winter?
So they import the soil, they'll scrape off the existing dirt, bring in the specialized soil mix, which has compost, and so you get really deep roots out of the grass, and that's
Okay.
part of the reason that it's successful. Good. So
All right.
with this, a little point is, when you combine it with the previous one, you'll end up with a net change to the contract to the good, a credit between where you started of $6,078 between these two,
We're still saving some money, so.
and 7
that's good.
cents. So,
All right. Appreciate the information. Thank you very much. All right, so item 3, items for information only. It's the financial report. Flores?
Yes, sir, Mr. Vélez. This is the report that you alluded to earlier. We're kind of in a catch-22, and I hate saying this on camera, but it's time to address the fact that we put out a lot of our financial information to the public, and it's no secret that if you're a school district, a county, or a city, the hackers on the internet system are watching us, our every move on our internet services, right? So this superintendent report, what we got with our financial advisor, his team was part of the team that actually wrote the Public Funds Investment Act many, many years ago. And we want to make sure that we don't shortchange you or the public on the information that we have to share with you. But we want to be conservative in what we actually are disclosing to you all and to the public.
Correct.
So we've changed this upper portion of the summary report to reflect more of how the portfolio is divided within investments and how those investments are doing as far as their yield goes and how those yields are comparing to the government market. Remember, we can only invest in investment grade securities, not like your own personal investment where you can invest in whatever you feel is going to hit the market and give you an advantage. We're governed by the Public Funds Investment Act. So the upper section, you can see what we call demand deposits. Is just a fancy word to say our checking accounts. But our demand deposits are, in total, represent 8% of our portfolio. The portfolio is just the balance of all of our investments. We also invest just a little under 20% of our portfolio in money markets. About 27% of our portfolio is in term investments, meaning CDs or other type of allowable instruments that will mature in 3, 6, 9, or 12 months, depending on how we feel the market's going to go and the yield of that investment. And then we have what's called investment pools. In the state of Texas, most governmental entities can join a pool. We're a member of about 3 or 4 pools, and these pools will hold these investments for us, and we buy shares in those pools. And they have a one-day liquidity. We can send money up to them and bring it down tomorrow. Same thing with our checking accounts and our money market accounts. They have a one-day maturity. We can move money back and forth depending on if the yields are changing to our advantage or if we need the cash to meet payroll. So we felt this was a more discrete approach to show you the board and still give you enough information to know that we are moving and we are investing our cash. It's not just sitting in our demand accounts.
Right.
And then we can tell you that the yield in the second column, for example, our demand accounts are earning a 0.92%. And it may not sound like a great yield, but if you look to the far right, you'll see that the average pool rate, which are these pools that I spoke to you about that all these governmental entities in Texas invest in, their yield is 0.1. So you can see that you can compare each one of these different types of investment instruments to the average in our market. And our market is also governed by the Treasury bills. So if you look at our portfolio yield, on average, it's 0.18%. But if you look at the average pool rate, it's 0.1. So we're doing a lot better. We're being very vigilant with our investments. Obviously, investment grade, meaning they have to be A-rated or higher. And it's a very conservative approach. We wish we could bring in higher yields, but we're not going to risk the community, the taxpayers' money, nor the teachers' payroll in case anything were to go wrong, knock on wood, God forbid. So we're presenting it a little different. But it is a catch-22 because as we go through the rest of the report, we start telling you what our revenue is, $363 million, right?
Let me ask you this, Mr. Flores. What if a member of the public, a regular parent, would request information? This is information that we would have to provide to them.
Yes, sir, they would be able to go through open records requests,
Correct.
and we would send them, the information as legal counsel
Is
would
there
guide
any
us to do.
state statute right now that we would have to continue the way we would have been doing as far as presenting the information in a meeting that's been posted and all that?
No, I think, and again, we're having an extended conversation with our public funds investment advisor. At the quarterly report, we probably have to disclose a lot more.
Right.
But my opinion would be, and forgive me, Mr. Gonzalez, this kind of got ahead of us a little bit, was to present this financial summary in a Friday packet before these meetings.
Right.
And if you have a question, email me.
That's the one.
Because we do, even though we close down that upper section in the report, we still open it all the way up when we start telling you how much,
Correct.
our revenue is bringing in. And it doesn't take anybody with higher intelligence to know that $363 million is cash. So So we would like to probably, if the board is open to this, present it to you all on a Friday package before these meetings. And we can communicate via email and answer back and forth
I
to
have
all
no-
board members at
I
that
see no
time.
issue as long as we are adhering to the,
It would be quarterly,
Statute of
a quarterly report, we cannot run from. That is
Right.
required by the Public Funds Investment Act. And we would bring this to you every 3 months.
correct, okay. That's fine, I'm fine with that.
Okay. And then you can see that the purchasing information is there and the grant information is there, and our tax office collections at a 99.06% collection rate.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Final item is notice of grant applications to be submitted on behalf of the district.
Good evening, Superintendent Gonzalez and board members. Bet you're glad to see me, right? It's been a
course.
long day. For your consideration this evening, I'd like to provide notice of grant applications to be submitted by the district. We have one that's up now, the Texas COVID Learning Acceleration Supports, also known as the T-Class application from TEA for districts. It's being done in conjunction with, and actually at the initiative of Elementary Education Department and Curriculum Instruction. The maximum available to us is $500,000. We're looking at using it for certain items, including tutorials under House Bill 45, Resilient School Support Program, and the vetted Texas Tutor Core Support. Are there any questions?
There's something that we already submitted, we're waiting response for on that one, or we already obtained that one?
We are waiting response.
Waiting for a response, okay, all right.
Okay, thank
Sounds
you.
like a good, thank you, Doctor. All right, with that, time is 7:51. I call the meeting to be adjourned. Thank you very much. Good evening.